that may be the अभी तो chill out हो जाएंगे because I don't have to talk much. बाकी तो speakers ही आपको संभालेंगे और कुछ questions है which I think we'll go through. Last session से एक clue था, we'll start from there only. Which I think someone from here asked about how do we trust the use of AI in, let's say, the high kind of volume, unseen payment transactions and all which are coming, okay? So that session is basically towards that trust by design. At the kind of a digital transformation platform we are working, the digital transformation is like a lifeline, okay? And the strict regulatory compliance is basically ensuring that we all follow the compliances, and not following is basically a liability in a regulatory term, not only organizations, some cases personal also. That's the compliance strict guidelines, the way the regulators are pushing through, okay? So I'll just come with if he can explain in practical terms what is a trust by design, okay, and how it basically applies in our digital transformations and developments.
Thanks, Anil, for the question. I think the previous session on the digital transformation and payments, a lot of been spoken about the trust, and our topic is more on the trust by design. So trust, usually these things comes with, there are mainly the two things for which the trust will depend upon. So it is security by design and privacy by default. So security by design, everyone knows when any product is built, it should be invite the security by design should be there. And now with DPDP coming up, the privacy by default is also needs to be imbibed. It is also a concept. So if we have both these things at the architecture level, at the design level of any product or any processes, then the outcome of these things will create a trust among the customers as well, and also it creates a confidence, and it will build a relationship with your clients as well, that yes, whatever the data you are collecting, if you are doing any transaction, so with the minimal level of data you collect, and you give the maximum number of services or whatever the consent you are taking on with those. So the trust is the important thing, how you design, how you design in your things in your architecture, and how you provide your services to the client.
I think you rightly pointing out, in fact, every customer, if you look at as a customer, as ourselves also, we are very much protective about our data or our digital footprints which we have, okay? And this expectations basically driving the development and design which going to. I'll ask Omkar if he can push some thoughts around it, like how the customer expectations is changing the way we need to build our digital platforms.
Yeah, so coming into DPDP into picture, so I will say people are more conscious now to give them their personal data to any organization. It is not only BFSI, but other than BFSI as well. So practically speaking, you don't know where your contact lies, right? So you have contacted by one of the card holder or for the credit card, for the credit card apply, and then your application or your number would be floated around all the banks. That is what is happening. So from that perspective, the DPDP is a very good, I will say, the rules and regulation what they have put in. Because of that, the end user or the end customer would be protected more from the spam calls or fraudulent activity. That is what I think.
The consent management in a DPDP is one of the primary driving force, okay? So let me ask, in fact, about this. If you have to build a digital platform where the consent management and has to be bring up in the system, so without adding a customer any, let's say, frictions in terms of the existing digital platform, how this dynamics going to change?
Okay. Thank you for that question. Hello, everyone. So the outright answer is, can we create solutions without friction? When we are asking question, the answer to that is no, because we are asking for explicit consent, right? So whether it's a friction or making sure the customer explicitly knows for what he is, providing a solution for, I don't think we can marry the two together, right? We can't have a seamless flow in which privacy is embedded in a detailed PDF which nobody bothers to see. Privacy should be visible on the face, right? And that's what the act kind of sees through. So what this means is, I'll give you a GDPR perspective. I worked with a company called American Express. We were implementing cookies on the digital platform back in 2012-13. And 80% people opted in, 20% opted out. And that's a feature on the landing page, right? So when you say there will be no friction, there will be friction, but the idea is not to be more explicit about it, if I can put it succinctly.
I think that's, you rightly mentioned that without changing, you cannot basically get out of this frictions. There must be some change.
Every digital interface would have a 5% drop-off in the CX lingo, right? Every digital widget or an impression that you see, rule of thumb is you will have a 5% drop-off, right? So people can drop off on that screen, but we need to have that screen. Because there's no implicit consent, it is explicit consent. So that's why.
Change basically brings silos between various teams in agile development, where risk team, the development teams comes in the picture. So basically there should be some kind of a balance which can drive it out. Okay. So maybe I'll ask you, Nirman, that how the leadership basically going to bring this change to ensure that, let's say specifically the security aspects, okay, becomes everyone's job in such silos it can be addressed.
Sure, Anil. So as we say, everything decision speaks from the leadership. How the leadership gives the direction, the organization moves in that way. So in this as well, so leadership should be there should be a provision that it is safe to fail, I'll say. So leadership should empower people, or give more accountability to their people, so that they should experiment and they should be allowed to fail. If they are not allowed to fail, then they will not learn on those things. Means there should be as you mentioned that people are working in different silos, so there should be an opportunity to collaborate with different team members, and whatever the business goals, it should be mapped to all the controls, or whatever the controls are there, it should map to the business goals as well. So if the controls are not mapped to the business goals, then it is not giving you that KPIs are not met, or the things. So and if you have to implement anything in the organization, you should always start as a small in a pilot phase, and then roll out to the overall in an organization. So cultural change is required, behavioral change is also required. So cultural and behavioral change will not happen overnight. So it is management keep on constant engage with their employees, and give them an empowerment, and slowly this change will and it starts with them as well. Means leadership always starts the whatever they speak, they walk the talk, and then definitely it will be seen in for the rest of the employees as well.
Right. Well, as you rightly bring up, this where the leadership has to come. Otherwise, there is no role of leadership. Omkar, going with the same, if we have to, let's say, strike out this right balance between the speed we need, development, there are data challenges, and then there is unwavering compliances. How this thing can be done actually?
So I have worked with multiple organizations. Since I have worked with startup as well as the BFSI sector, so I understood the balance between both. So practically speaking, whenever startup used to work on any of the project, they have never thought of starting with the security. Now in BFSI, people start with the security guidelines and post that they start the project. That is a bigger change I have seen in the BFSI sector. It could be because of regulatory, but I think that awareness should be there within startups as well, because it's again a data and there should be security around it. And if there is a big startup, then they might think of the brand value and other stuff. That's the reason they are putting a guardrails and security in place. But unfortunately, it's not applicable for all the startups what I have seen. But in BFSI, because of the regulatory controls, it has been already in place. Second, from the innovation perspective, I will say innovation will not stop because of all these guardrails. We are enabling the innovation within the secure environment. That is what I will say, which is a very good in terms of the process adoption as well as from the end user security perspective.
But let me ask the audience also, okay, how many of you think that this right balance and the speed, the way we develop versus the kind of the, let's say, latest circulars from regulatory compliances are coming, okay, making your engineering team sleepless nights, weekends, okay. How many you have think that, if you can raise a hand, that these are a real challenge you are also facing? Or no challenge you are facing, the kind of regulatory compliances are coming, you are all well set in your current model? So if you can just raise a hand, I just want to see, is the problem with only the people talking, or you also have the similar problem?
Everybody.
But I don't see hands from everybody actually. That shows that either people are well managed within their organizations, so they are already, as Omkar is saying, in the banks, they have already started taking care of security as first principle in the development, which means everybody is doing, so there is no such problems at all. Is that the reality?
Not the problem. Not with problem with the business. Party want the open, they want to off track. You don't want the top, get it nowadays. Give me that Gemini, give me as cloud, give me Microsoft Copilot. And if you ask from the business, give me the business case, nobody will have. Then you don't have your orchestration there created for security, for using artificial intelligence in the organization. But twice by fourth, people should understand if there is a problem, regulatory issue, there is a reality privacy issue in this. Still there is a challenge.
True, there is a challenge, and we all know there is a challenge, and I hope every one of us actually working towards the challenge to ensure that there's seamless transitions by bringing some of the principles.
You cannot go nowadays seamless transitions, straightforward. No, answer is no.
All right, so let me ask Vinamra. Condition is the AI is basically people are using for writing all the, let's say, is the underwritings, in the finance, or in the development, for example, the course and everything they're building out. Okay, so how do you see that AI going to play a role in terms of the unforeseen risk that as a leader we need to look for?
Sure. So let me break that answer into two halves, right? AI, the problem child, and AI, the helping hand, right? AI is obviously the helping hand, because today I'll start from the positives, because I represent data and intelligence, and that is vetted in AI. So let me start from the positives. Right now, we are monitoring things in a post-fact, right? Less review, monthly review, weekly review, regulatory review. There will be a concept of AI embedded in regulatory design. So there will be an always on. We can't do always on, right? Regulatory review. But with AI, obviously you can do always on regulatory review. So that I'll just leave with that example, which is trusted AI in regulatory design, right? That's one positive of AI, which we were unable to do. Now coming to the problem child in AI. So first of the major problem child is the gentleman talked about, the shadow AI. So I have the AI, I will use it. IT blocks it, I'll find another way, right? How do you even govern it? So the shadow AI organization will run, whether IT or the CISO organizations or the data organization, like it or not, that will run. That's the human behavior. but that comes at risk, and nobody has to really call out that risk. There are obvious risks. So shadow AI, and then we are talking about data itself, right? So data everywhere, no lineage, no cataloging, no governance. AI thrown on top of it is rather more confusion than insight, right? Rather more wrong actions than the right actions, unintended, or let me put it, unintended actions and the risk of that, right? So should we automate it or should we redesign the flow? Because AI gives you the opportunity to redesign the flow. So let me automate the part of things. Are we doing automation or AI redesign? That's the third question. Shortcut to a long cut, and obviously the trade-off, right? Time, effort, everything is a function of that, resource and the cost. Yeah. And the fourth, and not the most least, is also like how are India-centric AI apparatus ready, right? We are over-reliant on, and I think there's a criticism, but with no action from my side. I'm on the applied side of it, right? So we are still not there where we have truly native LLMs in India who are functioning on private clouds and helping us, move there, right? So the obvious question is, data residency solved for, LLM residency, oh come on, it is running on this server, right? Some of the answers are still gray. The context goes, right? Hits the vault, right? Vault, which is a way to, deflect the question that it goes outside, but the context does go, right? Let's agree to disagree. There are global models. I want to do an automation on Claude. Bulk of those models are global, right? Can I use it? Can I not use it? Right? Certainly it's questionable, but the power is there, right? So that is the fourth aspect of whether we are ready as a country, and this is sovereign. We all understand it's a sovereign thing, right? It's a sovereign war. It's not just about a company in a silo, employing an AI use case. It's about a country ready for the AI revolution. So that's the fourth aspect of it, and that's a problem child because maybe we are not ready there yet. And obviously we are trying. I mean, just a criticism, right? Obviously we are trying. There's servants of the world and government investing 10,000 crore, and even in quantum, government investing in that direction around 8,000 crore on quantum mission and things like those. But I'm just saying we are far up from that, right? So that's the problem child in AI. I hope I addressed the question.
Well, but then the questions came, so I'll ask another questions to Mrinmay on the similar line. Okay. Many companies basically, that's how I see that doing the checkbox based audit compliances. How do you see this being done as a audit based check compliances, or there is a people's considerations or leaders' consideration in terms of actually making strategically these changes into the system by design itself?
I think the change is happening on a simple way. Yes, but we still see currently the auditors are using the checklist based for almost all of the audits. Maybe the internal audit, maybe the regulatory audit, or maybe the any audits. So checklist is the first thing which any Big Four or anyone you invite, they will start with that. But ideally, everyone is moving now, evolved. So I still feel that we are moving it ahead from the checklist. It will be more from the control based, based on your how the controls are, effectiveness of the controls are checked. So audit does not only mean that it will be a tick in the box. It should be the effectiveness of that control, whether that control is making sense in that thing, whether the output of that control is correct, coming out correctly or not. What is the win made, or if the since our technology is also evolving, the control also needs to be evolved. If I take an example of DLP, so DLP can be a detective control as well and also preventive control. So how you implement that DLP in the preventive controls or a detective control in a way that will suffice your thing. So it is a strategic decision of the organization depending on how you want to implement your thing. Similarly, one more example I can give, your IPS or IDS, right? If you implement IDS or IPS in your organization, whether you want to implement both IPS or IDS, or you want to IPS is intrusion prevention system or detection system, right? So prevention and detection again. So some of the organization, they implemented both IPS and IDS, but in some organization they don't want, they only do okay with IPS only. They don't want to detect, they want to prevent only. So it is the strategic decision of the organization how they want to design their architecture, network architecture, and then align to the framework of which global framework which they are following, maybe ISO, NIST or CIS benchmark, whatever. So it depends on what controls they are implementing. Not only they have to evolve from the checklist based to effectiveness of that controls.
I think totally agree, but I also like to ask audience whether any disagreement what just mentioned about it is a leader's strong positions to ensure that the controls, the way they are using, whether to leave the controls which are just only in a detect stage, or they also implement the preventive measures of those controls, because the tools do comes with it, but it is a strategic decisions how you would like to implement, because then there is a pros and cons of in terms of the let's say performance of your applications if goes into from detect to protect mode. So any differences in opinion, anybody, in terms of the compliances which we need to ensure? Yes, sir.
You detect it, you definitely need to mitigate that. I think both IDS as well as ITS are necessary, because
I do understand what Sir has said, that it is a strategic decision, okay, but if you are detecting, okay, then you without mitigation, okay, your system is vulnerable, your entire architecture is vulnerable. So definitely I think when we are talking of IPS and IDS, both have to go hand in hand.
Absolutely. That's how we should look at the compliances to ensure that both work hand in hands. So that leads, maybe Omkar can talk about this. How do you, Omkar, basically see this kind of compliances going to change our future strategies of the technology platforms?
So if you'll observe how the security is getting mature or regulatory putting guardrails. So, for example, there were few rules from SEBI for other stuff. Now they have come up with the one document which is CSCRF. Okay, they have combined all the rules and they have started implement to all the organization. The only flip side of it is, so whatever rules they are putting in, the small organization who are just started their mutual fund or any security firm, I don't know whether they have that much budget or not, because practically speaking, all comes down to money again. So if you are putting all those guardrails, whether they have that much budget or not, whether they have cheaper solution or not, that also we have to figure out as an industry, and we should think of it.
But do you see that the regulator is open to listen about the small people's not having budget to do security aspects?
So it's depend how you are going to protect. So there are always an alternate for all the guardrails. You have to figure out which vendor or which partner will give you all those guardrails. There are workaround to mitigate all those things, but you have to find a solution. That is what it is.
Yeah, please.
Basically, how Indian INCs, BFSI are mature in DNP. I know DNP is a tick box till now. People are using as a tick box, even large insurance conglomerate also using as a tick box. How Indian INCs are in BFSI mature in DNP. So banking has the closed door, the data is in the application. But from the other BFSI segment, asset management, you take wealth management business, you take as an AMC business, alternate asset management. I don't think so they are that mature compared to you can go for the European firms or the US firms.
So I just little differ. maturity versus the European or American firms versus Indian firm, I think Indians digital platform firms are more mature. But you rightly brought up one point.
Digital platform. I'm talking about the DLP maturity or the implementation is a tick box activity. I see in the many organization we doing as a tick box activity more. So the organization having efficiently working on the DLP project and the success criteria. I can say on the 10th project, it's a 2 project or 3 project as a major success, but 5 projects is the only tick box activity.
Absolutely. I am totally agree on the second aspect. Maybe somebody from the speaker can answer you how to handle this kind of a situations this year.
So the seriousness of situation lies in the fact that the DPDP Act was presented in 2019 and then eventually passed in 2023, and then the notification rules came up and the implementation time frame was drafted, right? You have to also understand that India is evolving and, growing, not to take the security aspects away and data protection aspects away. We also want to grow fast, right? Please understand that ambition and aspiration. So obviously it was tabled in 2019 and came through. There would be some context to that, right? Okay, now coming to the point of it, we are talking about just DLP, right? It is from DPDP, the expectation is way beyond DLP, isn't it? I can control DLP on my controlled environment. I sharing PI data to Mrinmoy, both are same org. I do encryption, send secure, he can't send forward, toolkit encryption and so on and so forth, which I think we were doing again in companies like American Express, etc. We has Volter encryption. But DPDPD is more about an Excel file with PI lying in your laptop or your OneDrive. So it is not, it is also about data discovery at scale, right? Not just systems, sharing PI. The DPDP may also be about, right? And I'm not a legal expert, etc. I'm speaking purely from a technology standpoint of PI data world protection, that an analytics person need not see the PII, right? And he need to see the entire data. I don't need to see the PII as analytics, right? So polymorphic encoding and data world protection, the analytics sees hashing, CRM sees, clear data one at a time, etc., etc.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. And the fourth one, and rightly put, is how do I do external data share? I have to share with the regulator, PI data, talk about it, right? Right?
Third party.
Absolutely. And I have to share that, right? That's an obligation. I share with you, let's say you are the regulator. How do I do a time-bound, link-based, share that is only with you and only with you, with 2 levels, maybe 2-factor authentication. So those solutions are really coming up. These are like 4 layers I talked about. Obviously, the greater experts can talk more. The significant fiduciary organizations are already on that direction to answer the question of cost versus trade-off. So there is a classification of significant fiduciary and non-significant fiduciary. So obviously the entire baseline has to improve, but in what order and how, it is also important, because it's a trade-off. Like fraud is a trade-off, right? Likewise, this is also a trade-off.
I think rightly Abhinimra mentioning that it's just evolving and the developments is happening. And over a period of time, once a development start maturing, it will become economical, and which means ultimately the other forms, those asset management and other areas of the organization can able to implement such thing, but there will be time to evolve and implement it out.
Not all about only the PID time, BFSI.
Right.
In BFSI, it's like in the research analyst making a report.
Correct.
Which is as in the confidential bit. So the variable of the data on the other BFSI, other than banking and the insurance company. So that will be the always challenge, because you do not have this straightforward template where you can block the data. Right?
About the organization itself, it's even a third party inclusive. If you are sharing the data with a third party, even a third party is also responsible to ensure the consent management are taken care. For example, I revoke my consent. If my data bank has shared with 10 different, let's say, companies for any analysis or any work, it has to be removed from in every places. They cannot, any of the third party also cannot even retain it. So the consent management workflow has to be in a like a ecosystem across all.
Yeah, so you capture you're the fiduciary and then the processor, and the agreement should have a DPA, right? So we're not getting details here, but the point is, if the entire system is not robust enough, right, at a scale, it will not be successful, right? Because information is, let's agree, information is shared, and it's not as India has not done it. What is DigiLocker? What is DigiYatra? Right? So India has done this at various scale, and India had the tech order, right? So I'm not saying it can't be successful at a scale, but I think the situation is still evolving. And if it is done at scale, it becomes economies of scale, and therefore everyone adopts rather quickly.
So Mrinmay, taking this to a next level of AI, how do you see the AI going to play a role in strengthening this governance in the organizations?
Whatever he has asked, the DNP is not successful in many cases, but I disagree on that point, but that's fine. We can have the discussion later on. Coming back to your question, so how AI will help? Definitely nowadays everyone is working on the AI for defense as well as an offense. So AI to defense is becoming much more interesting and challenging than AI in offensive part, because nowadays with the AI, any GPT tools or any Mythos and other things, people who is just a tech savvy can generate a code or generate an offensive attack to any of the organization without having basic knowledge of hacking, right? Or without no knowledge of hacking. So AI is doing all those things. But in the defense part perspective, you have to implement your IDS, IPS as Sir mentioned. Also, you have to keep your honeypot, you have to XDRs, you have to keep your logs, and then triaging, and then 24/7 those SOC people are triaging some incidents, and they ultimately found out that there is no use cases which triage that log. So that is again a deficiency of that thing, that I spoke about the effectiveness of that control, right? So AI, definitely there will be a human error in between. So the person will be fatigued of using so much of alerts. So AI can help in those things. So for detection perspective, for how for automating the things or flagging the things in a way, if there is a lot of data, how those data can be used in a better way to predict the things. So now Gen AI become more interesting because they can predict the things before any attack can happen or not happen, right? So those are the few things in a defensive way rather than more on an offensive platform. So
Omkar, any thoughts you would like to share on this front, on strengthening the compliance in the organization?
So what we have done, we have, we say SARA. So we have a security assessment test. So any vendor or any application which we want to onboard, for that we have a set of questions. It's 200 plus set of questions where we go through all the questions. We answer all the questions. Also, we do a VAPT and other penetration testing and all. And then we onboard all those things. So that is what process we have as an Axis group overall. So that is how we are managing the whole thing from the security aspect.
Good. Any questions from audience? Anyone? Yeah, please.
So the thing is, TPDP, point every organization tightly, we got a so we come from your ownership.
What I meant to say is, DPDP is an act, right? And most of the organization, give away the ownership or the responsibility to IT or probably a CISO or CTO. So that is that thing is, completely contradictory. Because of this, I think what I think, you was talking about the DLP thing. The only reason is, we don't understand the data. I think the PI data and the normal marketly available, openly available data, it's two different things. And we need to focus on the PI data for the DPDP if you talk about the DLP or something.
And second thing is, 95% of the people in the organization unaware about this particular DPDP thing, just because it is not this ownership is not taken by the legal, and it is on the, I think, IT side. Because, most of the people in the organization, if you send any mail, any education mail, and any, advisory mail to the organization from the IT team, they will always, ignore that email. It's nothing like that. It has to, I think this is the major, issue with the, DPDP Act as of now, what I can see.
Wants to comment? I think just to answer you, this problem areas, I think the DPDP also talks about that the ownership. Okay, so organization has to appoint a DPO, right? Data privacy officer. He is the person who is going to be owning that. So any compliances related
But
to
I think he will be, of course, he will be taking care of overall thing, but he will be more focused on the IT side, technology side, or he will be taking care of the legal side as well. Like if anything happens to the organization, or if somebody comes and, file a case to the organization, so we will go to the court. Like, when a legal person says a DPO.
So
better expert.
So nowadays, all the roles is so much evolved. Now it is not so much of the technical roles. All are business defined roles nowadays. So we call ourselves more of a business enablers rather than a cost center. So so it will be a constant effort by the DPO or CTO or anyone who is taking care of that position will share the knowledge. And again, it is a cultural shift again, right? So many people will not understand, as you mentioned. Yes, currently I'm also facing a couple of scenarios like that. So people don't understand the things that the data which we are working on, or someone who is analyst is working on, the data for him, it is normal data with all the PI data information in it, because he captured the KYC of any client, right? So he has all the data, but for him it is the data, it is normal data, and he says no, if it breaches also, what will happen? It is not impacting him, right? But it is client's data. So DPDP will not stop you to do all the things, but it will just bound you, because earlier data is flowing here and there everywhere, means everyone can share everyone's data, right? But now it will give you that consent. Only that part is changed, but nothing will change from the business and other perspective. But it will give the controls and guardrails in place and make you more aware of, or maybe I'd say the maturity of the thing has been evolved over the period of time. So if I say what do you mean by PI data? There are 15 parameters, attributes to consent about the PI data. If the combination of 2 or 3 parameters matches, then it will consider as a PI data. So with only one parameter will not define you as a person. If it is a male, it is a male, or a female, or whatever. And nowadays people don't define as well. So it is up to the person who chooses to answer or not to answer the particular things to be put in place, right? So it is a combination of all the three things. Then it becomes a PI data or SPID data. And the breach of any one PI data doesn't mean, because email ID, mobile number, everyone has it. So doesn't mean that your data has been breached or anything. But if it is a combination of few other things, then definitely you can always take up other thing. So there are few more things we can discuss upon, but I just want to rest.
I think that's how we have to see the breach. Has to be combination, not an individual field has to be. With that, I think we come to end, and thank you everyone for joining, and thank you for listening out patiently. So thank you, speakers. Thank you.